Mel. Hey, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, girls.
So
Good
exciting.
morning.
Good morning. Gosh, Amy, listen, we have a vision board for the Kindling Project podcast, and your name definitely went up there as soon as I learned about you. Mel and
True.
I really had a fun opportunity to attend your Women's Day Empowerment Show, which was so incredible. And your lineup that you put together of these fierce women was so amazing. And Mel and I left that night so inspired and thinking, okay, how do we get this awesome woman on our show? You really embody everything the Kindling Project's about, and is about really recognizing the fire starters out there who are making a real impact. And also by sharing your story and all your awesomeness, we hope to inspire some of our listeners to really listen to that little tiny fire inside all of us. So thank you so much for being here.
You guys, you're gonna make me cry this early in the morning. I'm humbled and completely honored to be on your show. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, listen, you are a social entrepreneur. You've got your hands in a lot of things. You're also a mom, a busy mom, a partner, a beautiful sister, a family member. You've got a lot going on. Can we talk about? I know a lot of your businesses, and we're going to get into that. But Amy, what drives you? What's your personal why? And every morning when you get up, when you have a million things to do, what keeps you going?
That is such a great question and so appropriate for where I am right now. I think I'm doing, a lot of reflection, and every day I'm driven by challenge. And that can come in many forms, kind of taking the day. I feel so passionately about Rebel Nell and what we're trying to build, and proving to the world that you can be a brand with tremendous impact. And that motivates me to be a good member in our community, motivates me. I think frustration with the outside world, things I can't control, but I can control what I do every day. And that motivates me. And you can't always see the change in a day, of course, you guys know that, but it's the persistence of like, okay, just keep swimming. I quote Dory constantly. Dory is, people are like quoting amazing philosophers and brilliant women, and they all deserve to be quoted. But for me, and right now, it is Dory. Just keep swimming.
Yeah.
That is
Yep.
so important, right? It is the keep swimming, the keep going. That's what really gets you going. So tell us about you've got three enterprises that you're running: Rebel Nell, T, which stands for, help me out with this one, Amy.
Teach, empower, achieve.
Right, amazing. And then you also have your cafe, the Congregation in Detroit.
That's correct. The congregation is, yes, it was another, community-driven business. We took an abandoned church and turned it into a cafe. So that has been a wild journey. It took us 3.5 years to open, and we opened it March 6th of 2020, 9
Wow.
days before the world shut down. So,
What timing, right?
well, it's such a
Yeah.
sweet spot. So, yes,
Yeah.
but
So
it's
having all
doing
these,
well.
and ultimately, how did you land in this, driven in creating these impactful businesses? Because what I've noticed, and it's obviously a theme and something that you're very driven by, everything you do is really just building a foundation for such a bigger thing. You really are in the business of making a ripple impact in our communities, because you go through and you break through and you uplift and you help so many members. Is that by design, that as you're building your little empire of, goodness for this world?
Yes, I think so. My journey's kind of wild. It's just let me turn off my settings because I think they may be popping up on the sound. So I started like the whole journey, like even like goes back to like what brought me to Detroit, right? So I I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. That was nowhere on my radar. And I was a pretty motivated young kid. So like at 14, I knew I was pretty sure I wanted to work in baseball. Like that was specifically sports, but like I really wanted baseball if I could get there.
Why
And
baseball?
I was a really happy, fond memory between me and my dad and my grandfather in particular. My grandpa was my best friend. And we have a small hometown team that's changed many names. Now it's like the Jamestown Tarp Skunks. And so, but as a kid, I would go to the, small minor league ballpark. And my grandpa taught me to love the game, and as did my dad. And keeping track of the score was something I learned at a really early age. And and so I wanted to pursue that passion. So I went to college, and I went to law school, I went to business school, really to have a well-rounded brain to compete on what I considered the no girls allowed side of baseball, on the player development, the player acquisition side. I had internships in sports throughout that time. And then ultimately, I was applying, once I finished all my education, I was applying to work for free with any team that would take me. And it's true. I mean, I have a box of rejection letters at my parents' house still. But that like kind of dates me a bit, because it was like when you got the actual letterhead.
Right.
With the really cool logo.
Yeah,
And now you get
yeah.
an email rejection.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I was collecting all the letterhead, and I always thought someday if I ever owned a house, I would put it, like, do a wallpaper motif with all the
Oh,
like
that's
rejection
funny.
letters.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So I literally have a rejection letter from almost every team. And then after 3 rejection letters, I got the opportunity to come be an intern in Detroit for the Tigers, and that's what brought me here. So that was like what brought me to Detroit. So it was always from that perspective, and this was in 2007. Like nobody was moving to Detroit. It was a ghost town. But I came thinking, this is amazing. This is my dream. I have an opportunity to pursue my passion. So I was always grateful to Detroit. So that's like part of like, when you kind of have to break down the story. And then the other part is I worked in sports for 11 years, and I had a lot of great moments, but it was also incredibly challenging being a woman with the particular aspirations that I had. And that was frustrating. And so I wanted, even though I wasn't necessarily feeling supported and empowered where I was working, my frustration I took out on kind of creating a company that would be dedicated to empowering women. And at the time I was also living next door to a shelter in Detroit, so I got to know the women there. So that, like, in parallel with what I was experiencing in my career, I was like, I'm going to start a company dedicated to empowering women. And then I think my love of Detroit has just kind of spread, and I'm crazy. I keep starting new businesses. I've asked really good friends that, like, if you hear me say I'm doing something else, just like to slap me and like check me into something, because I can't do it anymore. It's so much.
I suffer from the same disorder, right? I have a design agency. It's 12 years old. I have the Kindling project. I have a couple software projects that I'm doing. So I 100% relate to that energy.
What is wrong with us?
I don't know.
What is it?
I don't know. And I've got a couple teenagers and a house and a husband and like all the midlife
Yes.
stuff. And I don't know. I just cannot say no.
Yeah, I know. And there's something about the thrill of it, despite
Right.
how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
adrenaline rush when you have a good day. It's something about it.
Yeah.
Well, also you're meant to create, and you are meant to build these spaces because they're needed. And we need more women to do this, to sort of, what you did is like, here you are, you landed what you think is a dream job. You get there and you're okay, maybe not. But as you're looking around and you're paying attention, you're understanding and seeing that there's a need, and why not fill that need? And I'm sure it wasn't like, to your point you mentioned earlier, that you had these like, oh, I'm going to build a social enterprise. That sounds like fun. But I think that you were paying attention to something inside. There was probably an internal tug, a calling that you thought,
Yes.
okay, that itch, there's an
Yeah.
itch here and I have to scratch it.
Yeah.
Which is not very eloquent, but that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Monica, you nailed it. It's the tug. I say it in a lot of speeches too, because I think I was silencing it for so long, like the tug to like go do Rebel Nell full time. Why would I do that? I worked so hard to get into sports. Sports was my identity. Who would walk away from that job? And I just was like, it ate away at me. And I encourage people to listen to that tug, because we so often quiet it because it's not what we think or what we had planned for our lives. But sometimes trusting the tug is what you need to do. So yeah, that's a great way to phrase it, because I believe in it.
It's really at the core of what the Kindling Project and Monica and I want to do for women. Is I think the three of us are the exception. You know, we had that little fire inside and it just wouldn't go away, and we had to put kindling on it. But so many women just dim that light, you know, and I get it. It's for the kids, or for the relationship, or for the job, or for society expectations. But I feel like there's just this massive untapped potential in women who are not listening to that inner tug, or that little fire, or those inner whispers, or however, you know, we phrase it a bunch of different ways, and people express it a bunch of different ways. But women are not necessarily encouraged to put kindling on their own fire, right?
Yep.
Or we tend to go out and do for others. So it's inspiring for us to have you here and to talk about, you had a passion and you followed a passion, but you still listened to the inner voice when there was something else, and you still took on more. And I think that's an important, it's an important model for women to understand. You can do more. I know we're always telling ourselves, like, you can say no, but you can also say yes, right? And I think that's
absolutely
important here. Yeah.
And what Amy's doing in particular is so impactful, is because we always say in our group, in our core listeners, like, we're just giving out permission slips. But for Amy's target market, it's like they believe there are no other options. These women have struggled. They're on the struggle bus. And what Amy's creating is, no, not only is it possible, but I'm going to make it happen, because you can land in my space and I will make it happen for you. And that is the difference. That is that change maker. That is what I'm talking about. That is so impactful and trickles down beyond the one or twos.
Right.
Amy, and that's why I admire you so much. Because
Well,
a lot of
people
have
appreciate that.
written these women off, and you haven't. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some more about the women that have come through Rebel Nell and who have had, you know, opportunity and growth.
Yeah, I think that's the adrenaline rush, like, is to just be a part of their journey in any way that we can at Rebel Nell. So for those who don't know, like, so Rebel Nell is a women-owned business and a verified social enterprise. We exist to provide employment for women with barriers, by providing not only the employment, the equitable opportunity, and wraparound support. So, and we make really amazing gifts and jewelry out of repurposed materials, such as fallen graffiti is what we're known for, but we also use a lot of iconic and meaningful different material, like the Joe Louis and Comerica Park and fun stuff. But the beauty of what we do is challenging, because it's something that cannot be measured. You know, we talk about like investors or foundations. It's the building of the confidence of the women that we employ. So we employ directly from local shelters through our partnership with T.E.A, but they like help find women who are ready for this type of transitional opportunity. And we look for three things. We don't do a background check. To me, that does not matter where you've been, it's where you're going. And we talk about, you know, so much on this podcast already is that, like, kindling that fire. We look for women who have a fire inside of them, that they are willing to change their situation, can work well with others, and have a willingness to learn. If you have those three things, we can work with you. And so then once they come in, we train them how to make the jewelry. The really important piece, and sometimes it gets left out of the story, but the jewelry is such a transformative part of their journey, because each one of our pieces are completely one of a kind. It's the woman, not only because of the material, but also the woman who made it.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets to take the fallen graffiti, turn it into a work of wearable art, and how great is it when somebody purchases something that she had a vision for. So we see that like immediately. Then we really start tackling, along with our partnership with T, is understanding where are they in life. Everyone who comes in is different, and I feel like that's so much the secret to our sauce, is everyone's got a different story, a different journey, so we meet them where they are. And year one is focused on, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food, water, shelter, let's take care of those first. Next is, now that you have that cared for, let's understand your budget. Let's understand what are those barriers that have been prohibitive in the past, and how do we start tackling them. So I like to think of year one as really that breathing year. And then year two is after they've been able to breathe. Then year two is now focused on, what have you always wanted to do?
Right.
And then we work on the next phase of their life. And then we ultimately will graduate them into the traditional workforce in a job more in line with their dreams and their vision, because they're able to now hold it based on the work that they did at Rebel Nell.
You really are creating art therapy. And by
Yes,
by
it is.
default,
You're
you're
right.
yielding some beautiful pieces of jewelry, but it's what the women are pouring into each individual piece that is the real story, and that's where the heart of the pulse of your operations, because through working with their hands and really working through their trauma, they can now look at a beautiful piece that they too have worth, that there is beauty in them. And I think that reflects on your jewelry.
Yes, agreed.
So
It makes it special.
Yeah.
And I hope that, and the goal is that energy transfers to the person who wears it as well. Like, I think that there's, so many layers to a piece of Rebel Nell that are really special.
I think
And
so.
how many women at any given point do you employ? How many women do you have?
Our sweet spot is really between 4 and 6 women at a time. We would rather hire smaller and go deeper. It's been always our MO. They're full-time jobs. And for us, that's more important than hiring 50 women, just giving them a couple hours a week here and there, because I feel like you can't really just get in and do the work. So that's been a choice that we've made. And I often say, like, yes, the work that we're doing right now is important, but the true impact won't actually hit until the generation that's not born yet. Mm-hmm. So we're a very, very unique and different approach to a business. And I think that, going back to what motivates me is just showing the world that you can be like this. I got a long way to go to prove it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you're definitely on your way.
Do you
find? Go ahead, Mel.
Do you find that social enterprise as a business model is something that's growing or taking hold culturally? Are there other Rebel Nells that you're looking to or learning from?
I think social enterprises are on the rise, and they are certainly a trend. They're incredibly challenging businesses to run, because you put people at the same importance as your profit. And so your bottom line is, your margins are tough because you're putting a lot of effort into caring for your people as well as your customers. So you essentially have 2 customers. You have to think of it that way. But what's beautiful is this next generation that's coming are so socially motivated, and this whole new group of conscious consumers are fascinating, and they want transparency from companies, and they want impact, and I love them for it, because they are holding companies' feet to the fire. And I think there has to be a shift, but they're harder to run, and so it's just kind of like the consumers are pushing in that direction, trending in that direction, but the investment, the support to help these businesses grow isn't quite there yet.
If there were a listener who has a social enterprise idea and is listening to this and is inspired by you, do you have any kind of words of wisdom or advice of where to start?
I would certainly not try and reinvent the wheel. There are a lot out there. A great organization to tap into is Rediff. They're in San Francisco, and they've really been on a forefront of being a champion for social enterprises, and they're a nonprofit and they offer a ton of support, and they're just a tremendous resource. I wish there were more Rediffs on, in the Midwest or even East Coast, but they're really strong on the West Coast. Go meet with a social entrepreneur. You'd be surprised how many are out there. And just ask all the questions. Don't, certainly walk before you leap. And, that's what T also. So we founded T in 2016 to actually be a support. T is a nonprofit partner that we founded, but now partner with. It's completely separate organization, separate entity. But the purpose of T is to provide that support, to be that bridge between the participant hired by the social enterprise and the social enterprise to kind of create that safety net. So it's successful for both. And we found with a lot of work with Rediff is that is kind of critical to having a successful social enterprise. You need a little bit of support, because to do it all under one roof is really hard.
Is the idea for T that eventually it would provide that service to other Rebel Nells? Or is it just strictly?
Nope, now it's spun off. Rebel Nell was its beta test. Now I think T is up to 4 or 5 other companies that it's working with. So T's on and especially with like workforce development becoming such a hot topic, T is there ready to roll. And to work with organizations that are looking. What T does is they have all the relationships with the shelters and the hiring, or the referral partners, as we call them. And then they also have the relationships with the hiring partners. So like Rebel Nell, when we were ready to hire, we would go to T and say, T, we are looking for 2 or 3 more women. Help us identify. So they would help source the women from the shelters. We would do the interview process. But then T also, at the same time they're onboarded by Rebel Nell, they are onboarded by T to really understand what are those challenges. And then it's really up to Rebel Nell and T to work together to ensure the success of the participant. So T now houses all of the education and our lunch and learns, and they have caseworkers on staff, and they're really the experts. And Rebel Nell is now paying for them to take the classes that are offered by T. And that's how the support works. So it's a beautiful model and works really well. We just need to get it a little bit more to scale.
So how do you raise funds for T?
T is a nonprofit, so a lot of the funds are coming through donors, private donations, and we've have an army of people that are supportive of what we're doing. So that's T. And then Rebel Nell we're a for-profit. We're an L3C, which is a limited low-profit liability company. And I'm trying to prove that you can be a business and put your people first.
I haven't heard of a L3C before. Is that kind of a rare designation?
So L3C, have you heard of B Corp? B Corps?
Only just on the fringe of what I'm paying attention to.
So it's a designation as a social enterprise. B Corp and when we started our company, L3Cs were the buzz in Michigan. I think they had recently passed legislation that would allow for an L3C to exist. And again, like kind of catching the wave of a social enterprise. It's similar in concept to a B Corp, which also goes through a stringent process of validating that you are a social enterprise, because everyone can pop up and say they're a social enterprise. That's why I encourage people, especially with the trend coming, to really ask the questions, are they truly a social enterprise? There's verifications out there now. You can look for legal status, B Corps, things like that. So anyway, going back to, at the time, they were kind of the two buzzwords, B Corp and L3C. And since we're in Michigan and they had recently passed the legislation for an L3C, we took that. Eventually I'll get a B Corp. I just need 40 more hours in a day. But that was like not to get in the weeds of, this is probably boring the heck out of your listeners, but it means nothing realistically. We're not taxed any different. I wish we got a break, but we don't.
But I do think these are some of the questions we're hearing from women that maybe want to start a nonprofit or maybe want their corporation to have more of a giving arm. So hopefully this is of interest. I don't know. It's of interest to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's
Amy,
many different ways to skin a cat. You know, with a nonprofit, the challenge is there is that you got to have a board and things move slower and
Yeah.
it just takes time. And for me, the structure of a nonprofit would just, I mean, granted, I started T, I get it, but my main focus, my day to day is running Rebel Nell. It just is and it's a different beast, like dealing with getting grants and, you know, you got to be careful not to mission shift. And with Rebel Nell, that's the other thing I really, especially with what we're doing, I'm trying to teach women about sustainability for their own lives and how can we, you know, move them out of poverty eventually and be sustainable. And so I wanted to also prove that as a business model. Like that was really important to me. I also like the freedom to just run.
Right.
That's what I like about
Do you
the
have
structure.
can you share a success story or two of women that came through Rebel Nell and now are functioning at a much higher level or pursuing another dream?
Yeah, I think one of our most amazing stories is one of our first hires ever was Karen. She was incredible and she was just such a I'm grateful that she was, our first three were all truly, truly, truly amazing. And we learned as much from them as they did from us. And, you know, Karen she was in it. Like she really wanted to take the classes, wanted to learn everything, always showed up, and eventually graduated, got her dream job, and we helped with all of that. Now she serves on the board of T, which I just think is such a cool full circle moment. Yeah, I feel so fortunate to be a part of everyone's journey. A lot have gone on to like start their own businesses. Amazon has been a great placement for us. DTE has been a good placement for us. So we just keep going.
that's wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about your team? I mean, obviously you're not doing this on your own. You've got, I'm sure, some incredible partners.
I have a great business partner, Diana. So she's been with me since the beginning, and it's important to have a good business partner to like bounce ideas off of. I have a front of the house staff that's helps me with marketing and a lot of stuff that I don't fully understand in the digital ad space, but I am getting smarter because of my great team. Our production crew is really made up of our creative designers. So those are the many of the women that we transition out of shelter living. And then a lot will stay. So while we graduate them out, we do graduate people internally at Rebel Nell into higher jobs, into salary jobs. So that's also part of the puzzle. And yeah, what else? Got a content creator and Kelly who helps with our making sure all the orders go out on time. I'd be lost without my team.
Is it mostly women?
Yeah, we are all women.
Love that.
Yes, me too.
So, what about growth? It sounds like, I know we said at the front of this conversation that you're already doing all the things and you've already told everyone to stop you if you have another big idea. But what do you see as the growth of the things you have your hands in now?
You know, I see so much potential for Rebel Nell, and I'm at this stage where it's been really challenging. The past 3 years have been really brutal on every facet of life, right? And it has been for everybody. I'm no exception to the rule, but it's been really hard to, and I'm seeing it. I organize women's business group, women's small business group here in Detroit, just mostly as like an absolute get together safe space. And, we did one fairly recently, and it was healing in so many ways to know that you're not alone. I think it's very easy to feel like you're on an island. And, with everyone had a really tough year last year. And I feel that a lot of that was we had to be so strong during COVID, where everyone else got to have their mental breakdowns during COVID or their freakouts. We had to stay strong for our teams. And in 2021, so many small business owners, like, the economy wasn't quite ready for us. We were all preparing for a big fourth quarter. A lot of us took out money that we thought would be helpful, but turns out it wasn't the most helpful. And we crashed, like, absolutely lost our marbles. I did. I'm speaking broadly, but I know for a fact for many others, but it was some of the darkest times I've gone through have been, in the past year. And I think we're still recovering. No one anticipated the world would head into a war during the fourth quarter. And a lot of companies had invested a lot because, the EIDL money and so I'm just ready. I'm ready for the world to be ready for Rebel Nell. I've now regrouped. We had to do downsizing like every other company. We've had to go through our own hard times, but we're going to be stronger for it. But those moments those moments of up and down and inflection are tough. But then now you just start like, okay, warrior paint on.
Yep.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at.
I like that. So you've said that the jewelry makes you feel fierce. And I think in one post I read too, you commented that even the dress you were wearing was by one of your makers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm curious, Amy, is that something that as you think of Rebel Nell, the brand, do you see yourself going into different categories?
Never say never, but I don't see clothing. I don't see us adding clothing anytime soon. We're adding more lifestyle goods, and what's been really successful for us are like promotional items and corporate gifts. I think we hit a sweet spot, and my elevator pitch when I'm in these meetings is we're not your chip clip. We are not the plastic crap you give away with your logo on it. That if that's what you're looking for, we are not that for you, and we can end the meeting right now. But if you're looking for something really meaningful and impactful that people will keep and they will wear and they will love, and they will be proud of you as a company because you partnered with an organization like us, I am your person.
That's that's a good sales pitch. Yes, right. Who says no to that?
I've been giving the Rebel Nell as graduation gifts for years now because I have teenagers. So I'm in that phase of life of every June I'm going to graduation parties, and I think you kind of alluded to this, but younger people really get it. If I give the gift to my mom or my mother-in-law, they're like, oh, it's jewelry. But if I give it to an 18-year-old young woman going off to college, she, reads the packaging and looks at the website and totally gets it and, values it. And so.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for being so supportive of us.
Yeah. I try to find those things. And, especially like for big life moments, to have gifts that last, right? So I think you're hitting that. You're striking that chord for sure.
Amy, what scares you the most as you face your business on a daily basis? I know if just from Elle and I just starting this kindling project, I can see the ebbs and flows, and I can see the moments where it's like, why are we doing this? Let's just pack it up. But something keeps us, you step over that fear and you keep going, you keep, like you mentioned earlier. But I'm curious for you in particular, what's keeping you up at night these days?
Oh, I have to narrow it down to just one.
No, the floor is yours.
I think, and everybody says this, and it's such a cop-out answer, that the fear of failure is real. And it's not, I don't even think it's the fear of failure for myself. It's the fear of failure for everybody who believed in me and carrying that. We have a smaller team now, but ambitious sales goals, and I wear that every minute of every day. I am pounding the pavement because I want so badly to do it for my team. You carry the weight of not only your family, but everybody else's that works for you. And then you're just like ever growing to-do list that just burns a hole in your brain 24/7. But we're all
Are,
that way.
so are
I
you
would be lost without a to-do list.
are you the sole salesperson in your organization?
Right now it's me and an incredible woman named Kim Blair, who a higher power landed her in my lap, and I'm forever grateful for her. She's great.
Was that a natural affinity for you? Because I know I'm just selfishly asking. I have a design agency. I also experienced basically 2020 to 2021 was a gigantic hit. And I had been so reliant on word of mouth and reputation.
Yes.
There was no salesperson sitting here other than the work. The work spoke for itself. And so now I find myself in this spot of there's not a salesperson, and I don't necessarily have an affinity for being the salesperson. You know, I'm the creative director. I'm kind of more of a behind the scenes, you know, sensitive, artistic type. So pounding the pavement, like you describe, feels like a torture. But then it's that responsibility for others. Like if I don't go out and sell it, I might have to let a writer go who's worked for me for 11 years. So it's finding that. I'm curious if it came naturally or you just slogged through it till you got it.
Slogged through it. We've had a series of bad hires that really were detrimental to the business. And
right.
I think when we had to do even our layoffs at the beginning of the year, and we had to have a focus on if it wasn't sales forward, you know, then we had to really readjust and sales can save a company. Sales can move a company. So that is, you know, she came as a recommendation from my business partner. They had worked together. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, it's funny. We always go back and forth. Like you're always leery about like hiring your friends. But this one worked out great. And now we kind of are back on the train of like only hire people we know because the ones we didn't know didn't work out. So you never know. You bounce all over the place.
Right.
So I'm wondering, Amy, I know that you're super busy selling your jewelry, and how do you try to tie in the cafe? Do you do a lot of pop-ups there to try to sell product?
Yeah, we do. We're close in proximity, and we have a product line in there that's actually made from repurposed coffee beans, which I think is the coolest thing. And we do a lot of pop-ups there. Fortunately, I have an incredible operating partner at the congregation who really allows me to only deal with like the really higher level challenges there. She handles the day-to-day because I would not be able to be here in front of you today if I had to also manage that as well. So that's, we do a lot of we could do more for sure. I think that you're striking a note in my head that like there's more we could do together.
I can't help but to hear a exhaustion in your voice of life. And I'm curious, I understand that you have a full house, loaded with your work. What do you do for self-care? Are you taking time for yourself? I just sort of feel like wanting to give you a big hug right now. I'm not sure why.
I would love it. I'm a hugger. Oh my gosh. And I think I struggled with during COVID not having that. I realized through COVID how much that physical contact means. I'm a big hugger, so I would welcome it, Monica.
I'm sending you a giant hug right now.
I'm feeling it.
Okay.
Self-care is something I preach and I am not the best at. And I'm trying to I think in my head, I get caught up in like, well, if I can't climb a mountain, then what's the point in doing it? So I'm starting to wrap my head around like just going for a 20-minute walk in the morning that's okay. You could do it. I don't need to run 5 miles. Like I will talk myself out of it to be like, well, was it even worth it? That's helpful. I love paddleboarding and I love surfing. I live in Detroit, so surfing is not really an option.
Do you paddleboard on the river though?
But I go paddleboarding on the river. I spend a lot of time on Belle Isle is my happy place. I don't get over there nearly as much, but just being on Belle Isle makes me happy. Spending time with my kid. I think that I just need to do a better job of separating, like being really present for him. Because that's good for me too. I'm a work in progress, like all of us.
Listen, that guilt for the mommy guilt, never doing enough, never goes away.
No.
You could be a
Yes.
full-time stay-at-home
Well, that
mom
is
and it's guilt
so
about something
comforting.
else.
Yeah.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take it from someone who's got kids a little, much older than you.
No, I
Well,
have the
I
same
appreciate
thing.
that.
Yeah. And I was explaining it to my son recently. Look, there's always an opportunity cost, Miles. Whatever we decide to do, it means we decided not to do the other thing.
Yeah.
And you're going to have moments where you look back and you say, why didn't you do the other thing? And I was like, we just couldn't pick both of them. We
Right.
we have to do
Right.
one thing at a time. And it's just motherhood, right? And parenthood, I think.
It is. And, you also have to like take it too, like I think with a grain of salt. Like he did the family portrait the other day, of course, the first grader, and mom's got her computer. Like he drew
Right.
it in, and I was like, oh, son of a bitch.
At least
Yeah.
it wasn't like a glass of wine twice the size of your head, right?
Right.
I've seen
Right?
those.
Totally. I know. Totally. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what though? But mommy's working hard and building something amazing that hopefully he'll be. And he's proud of Rebel Nell. He loves to share the
Right.
story of Rebel Nell, and he's proud of the congregation. I mean, my God, he lives there basically. So
Right.
he has going to have a total. The thing that's funny though, he has no clue about church because sometimes call congregations church because it was a church.
Uh-huh.
You're like,
Right.
yeah, no, we're going to walk over to the church. Someday he's going to go to church and be so confused.
He's like, where's the coffee shop and the yoga?
He's going to be so confused.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
For the full bar.
But I like the concept of the congregation as, I don't know about a replacement, but like an alternative church for those of us that don't have church, like a place to go.
I got a great story about that. So when we bought the church, it was we actually bought it from the church. They had left it. They had abandoned it and they moved out to Detroit. And it actually was insanely hard to find out who owns a church that's been abandoned in Detroit because churches change names and I had been trying for a year. I would write notes under the door, went down to search the records and just could not. It was all dead ends. And then one day I just had my son. So it was like, I made 6 weeks after or 8 weeks after. And I don't have to drive by it, even though it's a block away from my house. My one exit takes me straight to my house, but I went the other exit to drive by it. Talk about that tug. Something told me to do it. There wasn't construction, no reason for it other than something told me to do it. And sure enough, I pull up and the doors are wide open. And I called my husband. I was like, I am going in the abandoned church. The doors are open. This is where I am. And he's like, just wait till I get there. I was like, not a chance. I've got our son. So I grab and I run in there. And guy was in there and he said, hey, I said, what's happening? You want to see these buildings being used in Detroit? I said, are they getting a congregation back together? Is there a church coming? And he said, no. I got a random call from somebody from a church that said, this is our listing or our property. Would you take a look at it and see if you can sell it? And so he's like, this is my first time in here. I don't know what. Oops, my battery's just died on this. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that he's like, I don't even know if I can sell this. I was like, I have wanted to buy this church for so long.
You can sell it to me.
That was me. He's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, nope. And so, but what was important, going back to why I started this, is I wrote a note to the church and I wanted them to know my intention. I wanted them to know that I wasn't a pastor. I had no intention of starting another church. That was just important for me to let them know who was buying it, to remove that guilt. So I wrote a note and they wrote the nicest response back saying, your intentions to create a community gathering space are exactly why that building exists. And then they actually came, a lot of the deacons came to the grand opening, which was really special. So I love that story.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have and I think Monica's I'm kind of getting Monica bought into this dream, but I have a dream of buying in my mind it's a one-room schoolhouse or an old schoolhouse, but
Mm-hmm.
another kind of congregation place for women to learn and self-care and grow. And so I always am out driving around looking for those abandoned
She
one-room
is. She
schoolhouses.
calls me all the time. There's a building. There's this. There's this. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
Mel.
it's on my list. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Do
I know
it.
what you mean about like once you set your mind to it, you just have to keep driving by and asking the
Yeah.
questions and yeah.
Amy, you seem like to be to me a person with such high character and pure, such great intentions and ethics, and just always doing good for the community, by the community, for the community. Is it hard for you when, listen, people aren't always as kind or as generous or whatever? How do you deal with
Reliable.
this reliable? How do you deal with disappointment? That to me, I personally enjoy volunteering, giving back to the community. But I have learned that not all my peers are this way. It's because of whatever time, not wanting to, or the multiple excuses. But how do you deal with that disappointment in humanity?
That is a phenomenal question. And talk about an area where I'm continuing to be a work in progress and be stronger. I'm an empath
Hmm.
by just definition. And you put so much time and love and energy into these businesses, and you sacrifice so much for your families, for you're taking huge risks. You're risking your whole, like, everything.
Right.
And, you get like one hater who will show up and have a complete misconception, to completely misread something or make one flippant judgment after like one visit to a store or something and decide to like blow up the internet. It is so hurtful. And, my business partners and I talk about this all the time because we spend so much energy. My knee-jerk reaction is I want to sit down with that person. I want to understand where they're coming from, and I want to do better as a business owner. And I always reach out. I always find that person, and I personally reach out and say, I'd love to, buy you a coffee, or can we sit down? Because I need to understand why you feel this way. And there's always opportunities for growth and for learning. And I appreciate the ones that come to me first, but I think we live in this internet culture where, people just take it public so quickly without a chance for an opportunity. But, those are really, those are hurtful because, I don't know, you take it so personally, and they're usually just wrong, but it really does eat away at your soul.
Hmm.
But I'm learning to like, we got to focus on the good. The good is so often overlooked, and we don't put our energy into all the people that come and enjoy the businesses and all the people that thank us for opening and doing what we do in the community. And I also think we're putting trust though in humanity. That's where I always end up going, is that the world is inherently a good place. There's a lot of bad actors and there's a lot of bad people, and usually what they're going through something and taking it out on you.
Right.
Getting to that mentality is really, really important, especially for a business owner. I mean, yes, sometimes you're absolutely in the wrong and you apologize and people want to be heard. But, there are still just people that are going through it or jealous, or maybe they had a vision and it didn't come through, so they take it out on you. I don't know, but it's hard not to take it personally.
Yeah. But I do agree with you, Amy, that I believe in the goodness in people. And you, my friend, are an example of that. So thank you for being one of the good ones,
Aw, thank
the really
you.
good ones.
Oh, and
Thanks.
thank you for sharing so much of your dream and your vision and your success story with us and with our listeners. We just absolutely appreciate it and love it.
I
So
love you
much.
ladies. Thank you for doing what you're doing. You're sharing an incredible journey of so many other amazing women, and it's cool to be included, and I'm grateful. It's because of people like you that gives us an opportunity to share our stories, and that is so valuable because we don't often get those opportunities. So thank you.
So how else can we serve you, Amy? Tell the listeners, tell them how can people support you, volunteer? Give us the details.
My biggest thing is obviously think of Rebel Nell for all of your gifts, for your treat yourself moments, for your college graduations, your corporate gifts. We are the place to go for shopping. We now have a retail store behind the Shinola Hotel, which is really cool. And we're about to launch, you guys get the top secret, the make your own jewelry. So you can actually come in and punch your own piece of graffiti. So that would be cool.
Love that.
And just come check out the congregation. It's a cool vibe. It's a great place to have conversation, meet some new people, and
It really
take
is.
it all in.
Yeah.
Mel and I were there for the pop-up for that Kate and Mel had.
Oh, great.
So we had a
Yeah.
lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, and we
That's
definitely
awesome.
put it on our list because we're planning events for 2024, and we're like, okay, this is definitely going on the list of a great place to have an event.
Yeah.
Awesome. And hopefully we're working on the building next door to it too. So hopefully that'll be
Of course you are.
well underway.
So is that a separate
That's good.
building or a connected building? I'm not sure I have that
It's a
in my
separate
mind.
building.
Oh, and you've purchased both buildings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, girl. You're doing all
know,
the
that one's-
things.
That one's in rough shape. That one no one's been in for 50 plus years. But that'll be hopefully the goal, and I feel like we're far enough along in the project I can share it, but that'll be a pizza place that will be very complimentary to the congregation and a great place for our neighbors and community to walk to get pizza.
And I'm sure you're going to be employing just all the people that need the work, and amazing. So now you're helping even more families. Amazing
Trying.
work. We will definitely put all your socials and your handles on our show notes. So please, everyone, check it out. And Amy, we never sign off our show without giving a final shout out for anyone in your life that has just done something special or means something. Anyone this week, can be anything, anyone. Furry animals count too.
Yes, of course. This week is my husband. He doesn't get enough credit, and I always, thank the women in my life. But that, yesterday we celebrated our anniversary, and he's a ride or die, and I'm lucky. This is not an easy life to live with somebody, and we're in it together, and I'm fortunate for that.
Beautiful. Mel?
Oh, you know what, Mick? My shout out this week is to you. I
so
have
sweet.
had, as you know, kind of a rough month or two, and so have you. And we just graduated our 2 seniors this week, and just having a business partner who always has my back, that's the key.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Mel. I feel the same way too. So I'm going to shout out to you, Mel, to you, Amy, you know why? It's the strong women in my life that show up and to support and not judge and just to feel it. I feel super grateful for that. So thank you both. And listen, listeners, Amy has defined to us exactly what it means to be a fire starter. Please remember that it only takes one spark to ignite the fire within. We can do this, ladies. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Amy.